Sam Hatch, the House of Zazz, here with the one, the only Devin Townsend. Welcome aboard.
Thank you, sir.
And I got to say, I think you're only the second guy in the history of the show. I have this regular segment called the Most Horns-Worthy Player, and you've been Most Horns-Worthy Player twice.
Nice work.
Well, you did the nice work. I just kind of play your stuff on the radio.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks, man. I'm Hornsworthy. I never actually put that together. I'm good now.
Not many people are Hornsworthy, so you should really wear that as a badge.
But yeah, appreciate it.
Speaking of me playing stuff on the radio, we've got a new single out, Lucky Animals.
Mm-hmm.
My mom approves of it. She called in the other night and said she wanted to hear something. I played it for her, and she called me up and said she loved it.
It's wicked. I mean, I think that song in particular on the new record is a bit of an anomaly because it is simple and sort of like, it's a pretty lighthearted song, right?
Yeah,
but
yeah.
At the same time, I've got kids, my sister's got kids, and, as a result of that, there's lots of kids in my world, and I find that song, it's just such an earworm in terms of the chorus that it's definitely responded to people who are either younger than me or a little older than me, and I think that's cool, man. I mean, it came naturally to me, so I'm okay with it. But I guess the side product of that is now I've heard it so much, it just makes me crazy.
You should go play it on like Yo Gabba Gabba or something like that.
I'll go on that in a second, man. It'd be great.
So now Epicloud, that's coming out soon, and I love the title. It kind of reminds me a lot of your stuff, like fluffy and lush, but kind of also huge and ballsy. Mm-hmm. So is that kind of what we can expect for the rest of the record?
Absolutely. Fluffy, lush, huge balls. The record the intentions behind it were, of course, coming from different angles. Like, for example, how it's a response to the prior four records and lyrically how that plays in. And I guess any angle we choose to discuss it, there's going to be an explanation of some sort. But really the most obvious and the easiest explanation of Epicloud for me is I wanted to make a record that was positive in the face of the desire to be negative, where the world just tends to be going in directions that are inspiring on my front and most people's front, like fear and uncertainty and all that. I think that the easiest reaction to that tends to be to amplify that and make music that is, depressed or hostile as a result of that. Right?
Sure.
I certainly tried to go out of my way with this record to make something that wasn't that was the antithesis of that, and try to make something that was beautiful, and try to make something that was positive, and not necessarily based in my own existential dramas or whatever. And I think that when people who have an open enough mind, I guess, or open enough taste, or whatever it is, it's not to discredit people who don't like it, because there's going to be people who don't just because they don't. For people who are willing to incorporate something that's maybe not the norm, I think it's a really cool statement, and it works well on a sunny day,
And like you're saying, not really related to your own existential issues. Like you mentioned before, a lot of your work ties in with kind of personal landmarks, like the last batch of albums was trying to find creativity while you were delving into sobriety. Is there anything personal that spurred this on, or is it just overall looking for that positivity?
Yeah, I mean, the personal element is actually related to how all the other records' themes were so heavily invested in my own process. I just kind of got tired of it,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it was underlined by one day I was listening to Slacker radio or something, and every song that came on was this morose singer-songwriter sort of trying to elicit sympathy from the audience in the fact that he's overcome some personal crisis. And I just found that, I'm a 40-year-old man, and I've got a lot of things in my life that require me to be on point. And I just don't have time, man. I just don't have the patience anymore to extend that sort of interest in other people's dramas or sufferings. And then I started thinking about how that related to my own music. And I'm like, well, you've been imposing that on your audience for 20 years. This whole, check it out, guys, I'm getting over this stuff. And I just, if there's anything I pride myself on at this age, it's the fact that I do feel like I learn from my mistakes and the lessons that are provided for me. I mean, I definitely try, whether or not I succeed, I try and incorporate that and listen to it. And by listening to the last four records, I realized, I'm like, well, if those last four records are you essentially saying, hey, I'm getting over it, not be over it by this point. It's just, you're not listening. So Epicloud lyrically is not necessarily about me. It's about my connection, my personal connection to the things about life and reality and spirituality and all these things that I find engaging. However, there's no answers, there's no themes, there's no hypothesis. It's just, here's how I'm feeling about all these things in my life, and I think that it relates to all of us in its own way. And above and beyond that, I just wanted to make a rock record. I wanted to make something that was like wicked. And if you got to sing, you got to find something to sing about. And if it's vacuous, it's not going to be emotionally connecting, which I think music should be for the most part. So I just tried to choose things that were of interest to me without it coming across as being preaching or demanding in terms of, the narcissistic qualities, right?
Yeah, so it won't be like, oh, this is the album when he switched to Captain Crunch from Lucky Charms or whatever. Yeah, it won't be defined by that.
I'm okay with Captain Crunch, to be honest. More than anything else, I want people to be able to put on this record and not feel like they're, like I've said before, like swimming upstream in somebody else's semen, you know what I mean? You get to the point where you're just like, okay, dude, I get it, you know what I mean? And I think for me it was important to make a record that was just emotionally significant to me, but at the same time not about anything in particular other than, how intense or how overwhelming or how awesome I think the universe and the good things in my life are.
You've kind of answered my question already, but I've only been 40 for 2 days, and you got a couple months on me, so I was going to ask what sort of wisdom you've already gleaned from the 40s.
Wisdom? Wow. How about since I was 40, every day that's gone by, I've gotten, about 2% dumber. And I don't see that stopping until it gets to the negatives, and then it's just going to kick into hyperdrive, right? Like, I think wisdom is just is a fancy word for, having made a certain amount of mistakes and reacting to to how it makes you feel, and hopefully not trying to do that again unless you're a masochist, right? But yeah, man, I can't say that 40 is anything other than potential back problems and poking at my belly fat while watching Man vs. Food at 2 a.m, right?
So what about performance-wise? Is there more of an uphill battle nowadays, trying to get the fingers in shred fashion or the vocal cords loosened?
Oh yeah, for sure. But I mean, not enough that it can't be remedied by rehearsal or what have you. And you're fighting the physical end of it, and that's just the realities of it, right? Like. A lot of times people comment why singers, for example, let's take Metallica as an example, why they bring their songs down a half tone, and some folks cry foul about that. But really, the physicality of playing music live is very demanding. And to sing aggressive music, your throat just eventually, it's like wearing out the brakes on your car. After a while, you got no brakes left, right?
Yeah, so you have to adapt some way.
Yeah, I'm fortunate enough to still have some pads left, right? But at the same time, not so subtly, I've been including other singers in choirs, and then, maybe eventually you give me about 10 years, and if things go in the way that I hope they go, I'll just be able to stand up to the mic every now and then and be like, sing it!
Speaking of Metallica, I mean, they did a 4-night show not too long ago, and you released one on video that I've been, and CD, that I've been hooked on by a thread. Been watching that a lot. It's a pretty ballsy thing to put on. I mean, just watching the Ghost show alone, I think that would have been enough of a piece of work to get that together live.
Yeah, I mean, what can I tell you? I mean, where there's a will, there's a way. I remember when the management first proposed it, I was like, well, we're going to be on tour right after then. We're going to have no rehearsal. We've got no money. Like, all this, the physicality of this stuff is insane, right? And management was just kind of like, oh, no, you'll pull it off. I was like, dude, no, we're not going to, this is going to kill us, right? They're like, no, you'll pull it off. And so we did. And then I came up to the management after, and they were just like, hey, I just got a little thing to let you in on. I was like, what? We were all like, there's no way they're going to pull this off.
So it was like a dare, huh?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the thing is, if I got anything going for me, it's the ability to conclude things, right? Like if project, I've got something just pride-wise invested in finishing it, whether or not that's album cycles or tour cycles. I mean, I like to finish what I start, and that was no exception. I mean, it's certainly not the slickest release of all time. However, what it represents is, in a way, a visual representation of the effort that went into making it just barely work.
It definitely makes up for any kind of deficiencies by just sheer exuberance and just the fun of watching it, and I'm sure playing it.
No, I agree. I mean, I didn't actually get to participate in those shows until I was putting it together.
Yeah.
Because while it was happening, I was just, hitting bricks the whole time.